before we broke at lunch, I had shown you the messages between the defendant and her daughters in People's 219 with respect to the date of April 21st of 2017. Showing you has been previously marked as People's 194. There's a 26 in the lower left corner. When you went through the property in this case, was one of the items, this receipt that has the same date at 6:05 at night for a store on Melrose.
Yes.
If we haven't already, we object to keep it.
You have, and it's still overruled.
And showing you what was previously marked as People's 96, I asked you about going through the defendant's emails. Did you also do that and find documentation that we see here in People's 96, page 24, and the accompanying documents regarding Fabio Sementilli's benefits that was sent May 17th of 2016?
Yes.
As well as what you see here in People's 97 from August 4th of 2016, again, regarding Fabio Sementilli's benefits through Cody.
Yes.
I have a set of text messages that are dated beginning February 8th of 2017. 6 pages in length. May they be marked as People's Exhibit 220?
Yes.
Starting at the top, People's Exhibit 220. Did you review, with respect to the defendant's Celebrate report from her cell phone, as well as email, as we discussed, messages that took place on February 8th of 2017 and dates thereafter relating to her communications with her daughters?
Yes.
And in this set of messages, can you describe for us what we see here on February 8th, a couple weeks after the murder of Fabio Sementilli? Here we go, at 9:30 at night.
Objection, Your Honor. This was already testified to and it's cumulative. It's relevant and it's argumentative. It's letting the prosecutor make her.
I'm sorry,
All right,
counsel.
can we approach, Your Honor?
Let me just rule, and then I'm not going to approach. One, I've warned you before about speaking objections. This is the last warning.
Understood.
Next, your objections overruled. This has not gotten it before. Proceed.
Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
This is an instant message exchange between Bella and Monica. The first message, Bella saying, "Come home, all my friends are leaving."
And this is a message that is sent out from Bella to her mother at 5 minutes to 10 at night, correct?
Correct.
California time.
Yes.
And then is there a response from her sister, Jessica?
Yes. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It is like a group text between the three family members. And Jessica says, okay, on my way home. On my way.
And subsequent to that, about 50 minutes later, is there another text from Bella on this text message string
Yes.
asking if Jessica is almost home?
Correct.
On the second page, do we see a response from Jessica at 10:27?
Yes.
And then what do we see here at 10:27 p.m. on February 8th coming from Isabella?
A message to both Monica and Jessica saying, guys, what the hell, why leaving me alone for so long? I don't want to be alone in this house.
And then is there another message from her about 11 minutes later at 10:38 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay. And is that what we see here? Don't forget I exist or anything, I'm not opening the door.
Yes.
Night. And then at 10:43 and 54 seconds, what do we see here in green?
That's Monica responding, Jess, where are you? Get home.
And then do we have a response from Jessica that comes in at 10:44 and 29 seconds?
Correct. I'm getting off the freeway RN right now.
Moving on to the date of March 9th of 2017. Once again, can you tell us what we see here at 10:12 p.m.?
This again is a message from Bella in the group thread, asking if one of them can please come home.
One of them being her mother and Jessica?
Yes. I believe she was babysitting. Giuliani is falling asleep, and I'm studying, and basically she didn't want to be alone.
And she says, basically, I don't get why you guys leave me alone all the time.
Right.
Okay. And then there's a response from Jessica.
Yes.
And at 10:13 p.m., does Jessica send a message back to her sister and mother?
She does.
And what does she say here?
I'm always home alone, just lock the doors and put the lights on.
And then is there another message from Jessica to her mother and sister at 10:14 p.m. and 15 seconds?
It's from Bella.
Sorry, thank you.
Yes, it says, still, I don't care. Then you wonder why I don't talk to you guys, because you're never home and just leave me here to fend for myself. Well, I'm not you, Jess. I don't like being in this house. It's worse when I'm alone.
And on the next page, at the top, is there a message from the defendant back to her daughters?
Yes.
And this is at 10:16 and 32 seconds.
Correct.
And what does she indicate here? What's her response?
WTF, which I know means what the fuck is going on.
And subsequently at 10:17, is there another message?
I'm going to object, Your Honor, there was a message that was...
That's correct. You can go back.
That's okay. Councilman Cover, if you'd like to call.
Go back, please.
All right. Is there a message from Jessica at 10:17 p.m.?
Yes.
And then is there another message from the defendant?
Yes.
What is that?
I'm at a comedy club and this is what I gotta see! Exclamation mark.
And then are there 2 messages from Jessica back to her sister regarding their mother?
Well, I believe that the first one is actually to Monica, Mom, don't worry, and then follow up to her sister, let Mom have fun, I'll be home at 11.
On the next page, does the defendant respond?
Yes. It's 10:17.
Please work it out.
Correct.
And then is there a message back from Jessica?
Yes.
I'm sorry, from Bella.
Yes.
And what does she say here at 10:18 p.m.?
I'm making that therapy appointment tomorrow. It's like you guys don't even care. Good night.
And the defendant, does she then respond at 10:19?
Yes. What? With 5 question marks.
And then is there a message from Jessica to her sister and mother?
Yes. Isabella, stop overreacting. You're ridiculous. You're never home. We have lives too.
And on the final page, is there a message from Jessica with maybe a correction?
Yeah, I believe she's correcting the bruh to you're being ridiculous.
And then is there a message back from the defendant on March 9th of 2017 at 10:20 p.m.?
Yes. She writes, I'm so very hurt and disappointed. I'm coming home.
And then is there a message back to her mother from Isabella?
Yes. She says, no, it's fine.
Do you know what MIM means?
I do not.
Did you also review messages when we talked about the cell phone extraction for item 119, the defendant's iPhone, that came from Robert Baker on December 17th of 2016?
Yes.
Transcripts that we're going to ask to pass out to play a couple of voice messages. I have a audio file for a voice message on December 17th of 2016 from Robert Baker regarding Viber. We'd like to add it to the flash drive, which is already marked as People's 158.
Very well. And you have who it's to?
I'm sorry?
Who it's to?
For the Senate.
Okay.
And the transcript may that be marked, please, as People's 221.
Amen.
And if I may pass out the transcripts.
Yes.
It's only a
Anything
few.
I mentioned that applies, all transcript applies to this as well.
So that was a phone call from Robert Baker to the defendant that was on her, as you said, her iPhone 7, correct?
Correct.
And that was on December 17th of 2016 that mentioned using Viber, correct?
Correct.
And on the phone, did it indicate, the defendant's phone, that it came from the phone number, again, that would come up in the contacts the defendant put into her phone for Louisa or Arball for 213-272-1093?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a second very short voicemail from Al Birdsong to the defendant on May 17th of 2017, which is also contained on the flash drive marked 158. If the transcript could please be marked as People's 222, is it?
Yes.
And I would like to pass out the transcripts.
I'm going to object this. I'm sorry. This is obviously,
May I?
you can object this is hearsay. Renewal.
Can I see it, please?
Sure. And I'm not offering it for the chief.
One moment, please.
It's overruled.
May I pass out the transcript?
Yes. other people? Thank you.
Do you know who Al Birdsong is?
Yes.
And where does Al Birdsong, back in 2017, where did he live?
In Nevada.
No foundation.
Just saying.
Did you have any conversations with Mr. Birdsong or review transcripts and audios with respect to his interviews in this case? As well as, research Mr. Birdsong as a potential suspect involved in this murder?
Yes, I never had any direct conversations with him, but I've read and listened to all of the transcripts and interviews and done extensive investigation on Mr. Birdsong.
Were you also here yesterday when Mr. Roger Brown testified that he knows Al Birdsong by the name Bird and that Mr. Birdsong lives in Las Vegas?
Correct.
Is that consistent with your knowledge?
Yes, it is.
Objection, no foundation.
All those.
When you reviewed the defendant's extraction from her cell phone, did you also note that there were 2 different voicemails from Gail Burlingame consistent with what she testified to when you were here the other day, yesterday?
Yes.
I'm going to check with consistent with that argument.
It's overruled.
Consistent with leaving messages for the defendant regarding the purchase of a Mustang.
Yes.
Did you also obtain information, including audio files, for jail visits that were made to the defendant?
Yes.
How does one go about obtaining video or audio files for jail visits to inmates when they are in custody of the LA County Sheriff's Department?
Well, initially you have to make sure that the person that you want to recover that that visit, that video or audio of that visit, that they're placed in the correct visiting cells that has the capability to, that has a camera or a listening device or whatever. And once you set that up, then it's just, they have a visit, it's videoed, and then you sort of request a copy of that video.
Okay. And does this apply to all of the sheriff's jails throughout the county of Los Angeles?
Yeah, I believe so.
And in this particular case, did you obtain jail visits relating to the defendant throughout her time in custody?
Yes, there were many that had already been obtained by the original detectives, and then I've reviewed all of them, and then we did obtain some additional.
While we're on the subject, can you also, as a detective assigned to a particular case, obtain jail calls made by inmates to people outside of the jail? Let's say if they wanted to call home or something of that nature.
Yes.
How does that work?
So in that case, it's a little different in that an inmate is given sort of an individual number PIN number, for lack of a better word, that is their number. And when they get phone privileges, all calls within the LA County jail system are recorded. There is a message that makes it very clear that they're recorded. And so then the process after that is merely just reaching out to the coordinator that manages that system and requesting all of the recordings. And when you request it, you just need the inmate's name and the inmate's number.
And in this particular case, did you make requests for jail calls relating to the defendant?
I did.
And do you make those requests through unique or individual booking numbers?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that you obtained hundreds?
I would venture to say thousands.
Thousands of jail calls that the defendant made.
Yes.
Would it also be fair to say that you obtained hundreds of jail calls that were made by Robert Baker?
So, yes. I guess when I said thousands, I was kind of doing it as a batch in the case, that there was thousands as far as the case made by the both of them. But yeah, hundreds if not thousands by both of them.
Now, in terms of jail calls, you mentioned the fact that inmates have individual PIN or personal identification numbers. If you wanted to request jail calls made by a particular defendant on a case that you are working, would you only then be provided with the calls that are logged to or associated with that particular inmate's PIN number?
Yes.
Are you familiar with, in this case, attempts that were made, sometimes successful, sometimes not, by the defendant along with Robert Baker to get around that process of having their jail calls identified and thus recorded under their own PIN numbers?
It's oral.
Yes, that happened multiple times throughout this case.
Can you explain to us what happened, what they did?
There was a few different tactics that were made. The most common, I think, throughout the jail system is just to use somebody else's PIN number. So you get your cellmate, or they sort of seem to trade numbers, and if you were to make a call and log in somebody else's PIN number, then those calls are going to be on that inmate's recorded calls. And if I didn't have that inmate's number, then I would never get those calls.
In other words, if you weren't able to identify who that was an inmate within the men's jail or the women's jail, you would not be able to obtain those calls for the defendant if they used other inmates' PINs.
Correct.
What steps or what investigation did you do in order to try and identify which other inmates' PIN numbers the defendant and Robert Baker used in order to try to conceal their calls?
A lot of times, if you let the actual deputies within the sheriff's system know that this is happening, they can help you try to identify other names associated and other PIN numbers. In this case, the only way I could really try to keep up was to continuously monitor the calls, listen to the calls, and within those calls, they were, when they were successful in talking to each other, they would talk about, either within the calls or within letters and other communications, ways to try to be able to have a code or a pen pal or something in order to go communicate undetected by law enforcement.
That's the conclusion, Your Honor. No foundation.
It's overruled.
What type of codes are you referring to?
We recovered these coded. They talked about Robert and Monica talked about them both in the mail that they were sending to each other, and on the calls where they were able to talk to each other, and they would identify a name or a date or something that they both would know the answer to. So it was like our friend's favorite dog, or at one point it was the day we met, or the day we had our first date. Well, I don't know what that is. Once you have that date, then they assigned like a letter to every number and would do this whole intricate, they would say 1 minus 3 and 2 plus 7, and if you knew the starting letter, then you could kind of figure it out. But it was, and then it would change. They would change that starting letter or word phrase, and then we would have to try and decipher that as well.
Would it be fair to say that although you tried to identify the other inmates whose PINs they were using to be able to communicate from the male jail facility to the female jail facility where the defendant and Robert Baker were being housed, that there was no way to be able to obtain all of those calls?
Objection, no foundation, calls for speculation.
That's formally sustained.
Would it be fair to say that without knowing exactly whose PIN numbers they were using in order to communicate secretly, there would be no way to identify all of the calls that they made to one another?
Objection also seems factual.
As formally overruled. There's been testimony as to this.
Is that true?
That's true.
So even though you were able, as you said, to identify and obtain thousands of jail calls, you were unsuccessful because of their efforts to evade law enforcement, listening to their communications, to identify and obtain their communications.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
Were you able to identify and obtain all of their jail communications?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
When you said that they would often change the PIN numbers that they were using, was that because through some of the jail mail that you were able to obtain, as well as some of these jail calls, they discussed that certain inmates' PINs who they were using would no longer be good because those inmates at some point were released or moved to other facilities?
Objection, that's legal.
Overruled.
Yes, for one reason or another. I know sometimes it was they were released, they moved to other facilities, or there was occasions I recall where they no longer wanted to sort of participate. They were no longer comfortable participating in
Motion to strike, that's
No, this one's, it's overruled.
And did they, in jail mail that you were able to obtain and jail calls that you were able to obtain, continually discuss that exact issue, that they were constantly needing to find a new inmate?
Objection, that's leading an argument.
It's overruled.
Yes, they did. There was also some calls that we intercepted where I overheard the actual inmate of the PIN they were using typically has to announce themselves at the beginning of the call, and there was a call or two where they actually voiced that they weren't comfortable, or the other person on the line that they were talking to was not comfortable with what was going on.
Okay. And
Some foundation is to any date, time, when this was occurred.
Overruled.
did the defendant, along with Robert Baker, also refer to these other inmates by a particular phrase or name?
Yes, there was some that had actual names. Antoinette comes up as a name I remember. I think Tim on the male side, and then in general they referred to him as PPs, which is like a pen pal, but it was just PP.
And at some point in time during these recordings, did one of the two of them at times slip and actually use the words pen pals, and then one or the other would correct the other and say use PP?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. That calls for speculation. It's leading.
Overruled.
And in terms of being able to identify certain communications, did you also request through court orders to be able to?
Object to reference to court order. That's argumentative and not necessary to precede the question.
Again, Your Honor,
No.
can we approach?
Not yet. It's overruled.
With respect to the jail mail, did you obtain court orders in order to have the Sheriff's Department copy mail that was found in the defendant's and Robert Baker's cells at certain times, and then put the mail back once they were copied?
Yes, there was both. We have some mail that was recovered and booked into our evidence, and the majority were recovered and then copied and placed back into the cells.
And what was the point of having the Sheriff's Department copy mail, provide you the copies, and put the originals back into the cells?
It was very important that we at least try to not let Robert Baker and Monica Sementilli know that we were looking at their mail. They were obviously corresponding back and forth to each other, and we're coming up with these alternate ways to do that, and we were again just trying to stay ahead of them and keep up with the ever-changing pen pals and things like that.
All right. Now, is there also a policy in the Sheriff's Department where they try to prevent inmates from communicating with their co-defendants on cases that are housed in other jails,
Yes,
such as in this case?
yes.
And is there also a policy by the Sheriff's Department that if they are communicating with their attorneys or to someone that they identify as an attorney, that oftentimes those calls will not be monitored because they're privileged.
Calls for speculation.
I'll allow this.
Yes, and as law enforcement, if we're listening to a call and we identify that it is an attorney, we immediately stop that call, notify the prosecutor, and of course don't use that call for listen any further.
You heard Roger Brown talk yesterday when he was testifying about a mutual friend that he shared with Robert Baker by the name of Howard Lynch. Did you do any investigation on an individual that is an attorney by the name of Howard Lynch?
Objection. That's speculation as to possession.
Overrule.
Yes, I did.
And Howard Lynch was, is he an attorney who, as we heard from Mr. Brown yesterday, was or is a close friend of Robert Baker?
Yes,
And did you identify that Howard Lynch was utilized by Robert Baker and the defendant in order to communicate directly to one another?
Objection, speculation, hearsay, and argument.
Sustained on the first ground.
Did you listen to phone calls that were placed to Howard Lynch's office?
I did.
This was his law office, is that right?
That is correct.
And can you tell us about this plan that was put into place by the defendant and Robert Baker utilizing Howard Lynch's law office?
Objections, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Did you listen to calls where they discussed putting a plan into place?
I did.
And were those calls actually recorded?
They were.
And did you obtain some of those calls?
I did.
Did you listen?
Attorney-client privilege.
One, you do not have standing as to that. Two, there is no privilege as to this. It's overruled.
Did you listen to the calls that you were able to obtain?
I did.
And what, if anything, again, did you learn from listening to these recorded calls through Howard Lynch's law office?
As I recall, initially it started out where they would call in at different times, but they had a prearranged sort of time that they tried to call in on certain days. And
That's speculation.
Sustained.
Is that contained in the recordings?
it is.
May I proceed?
And for instance, when Monica called, she would leave a message for Robert, and then Robert would call into the office. That message would be relayed, and he would leave a message, and this went back and forth through Howard's associates at the office. As it progressed, they came up with a system where they were actually able to somehow call in at the exact same time and link the calls together. Of course, I don't know if they were putting the phones together or whatever, but in the recorded calls, they're having conversations to each other through what we call a three-way call.
Now, just like you testified to with respect to the scheme that was utilized to use other inmates' PIN numbers, did they also come up with a term? You told us with respect to the mail it was PPs for pen pals. Did they also come up with a term that they would discuss for when they were able to use other inmates' PINs to communicate directly to one another through some third party, such as Mr. Lynch.
For speculation, no foundation.
Overruled.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question. I know they used names, different names that they would identify each other by other than their name.
Did the defendant in some of these calls tell Mr. Baker that she didn't want to make phone calls unless they were clean calls?
Yes.
What are clean calls in terms of what she, the defendant, and Mr. Baker discussed?
I'm going to object calls for speculation.
Overruled.
They were trying to find a PIN number, an inmate number that they could use that wasn't compromised. And the problem that they were having is that as soon as they couldn't, of course, tell each other the PIN number over the phone, because then we would have it. And Baker kept using his own PIN, and Monica was adamant that they shouldn't talk that way, that it would be recorded, we would find it, and that they needed a clean number, which meant a clean PIN that we didn't know that number.
Your Honor, I actually have one jail call that I would like to play. The audio will be on the flash drive that has been previously marked as People's 158. The transcript, may that be marked, please, as People's, is it 223?
It is.
Jail's visit. That's not this one. It's not this one. I think it's.
To be clear, this is a jail visit and not a jail phone call?
Yes.
Very good.
I believe it's a video. Yes.
You you may. Admonition still applies.
I'm sorry, you don't have it.
You do not have a transcript?
Yeah.
That's good. You want to see mine? Sure.
One moment.
Objection, this is irrelevant.
I agree. Apologize for my staff, Christine. You may proceed.
That's good. You want to see mine? Sure. Okay. I can't see anything. What? I can't see it. I can't see it at all. What does it say? You couldn't see it? It says ride or die.
Transcript goes farther than we can hear.
It does. Is there more in the transcript goes further than what was played?
There's an entire conversation that takes place.
I understand that. The last two sentences need to be.
I'll ask. After that portion, does the defendant tell her daughter that the tattoo is just ink, it's just a pen?
Yes, I'm kidding. It's just a pen. I wanted to joke around with you.
Okay. The term ride or die, did that term come up multiple times in various forms of evidence that was recovered from the jail?
Yes.
No objection, that's flawed, no foundation.
It's overruled.
Did it come up in jail mail that the defendant sent to her lover, Robert Baker?
Multiple times.
Did it come up in conversations that they had that were recorded?
Yes.
Now, in the course of your investigation, did you also write various search warrants for different types of information that you tried to gather, just as we heard about this morning with respect to the burner phones?
I did.
With respect to one of those search warrants, was that written for, did you obtain a authorization to obtain what's referred to as a DNA reference sample?
Yes, I did.
What is a DNA reference sample?
It's basically just a swab of an individual's DNA to compare against typically other evidence in a crime.
Okay. And what format does that come in terms of how it's obtained where you're concerned as a law enforcement officer?
With the warrant, with a warrant, we obtain the warrant, go to wherever, in this particular case, it was to the LA County Jail Women's Facility, and we typically have 2 swabs, and they're in a sealed container. We obviously wear gloves and take those sort of precautions against cross-contamination, and just use the swab to swab the inside cheek, both sides of an individual. You're actually looking for skin cells as opposed to saliva for the DNA. And then we package it up and seal it in an envelope and book it as evidence.
And in this case, did you obtain, pursuant again to a search warrant, a DNA sample or buccal swabs from the defendant at the in the women's portion of the sheriff's jail in LA County?
Yes, my partner and I, Esther Myope at the time, went to the facility, and I believe Esther actually swabbed Monica.
In your presence?
In my presence, yeah. We were both there together.
And did that take place, the service of that warrant, on January 27th of 2001?
It did.
And then did you subsequently, I'm sorry, 2021. Thank you. Yes?
Yes, 2021.
And did you book those swabs for the defendant's DNA reference sample under item number 201, specific to the DR number, the LAPD unique case number in this case?
I did.
All right. And then did you subsequently direct that evidence be transferred to Randy Zepeda in the DNA serology section of the lab?
Yes, when we request the lab to look at a DNA sample that's booked, they automatically generate the transfer of the evidence. So the request basically generates that it will be transferred to the lab.
Your Honor, I have a stipulation that I would like to offer at this time. May the documents please be marked as People's Exhibit 224?
Yes.
Thank you. Stipulation, June 14, 2017, search at Queen Victoria. On June 14, 2017, Los Angeles Police Department personnel searched the Sementilli residence at 5012 Queen Victoria Road pursuant to a legally valid search warrant. The following items were collected at that location and identified as indicated below: a gray LG V410 tablet with serial number Z as in zebra, N as in Nancy, F as in Frank, V as in Victor, 410, and SIM card 818-640-8193 through AT&T, registered to defendant Monica Sementilli. The tablet was recovered from a chaise lounge in the northeast corner of the residence's living room by LAPD detectives. The item was assigned PID number 5 as designated as evidence item number 82. A gray HP desktop computer with serial number 8, C as in cat, C as in cat, 6500, C as in cat, X as in X-ray, X as in X-ray, utilized by defendant Monica Sementilli. The computer was recovered from a desk in the family room on the residence's second floor by LAPD detectives. The item was assigned PID number 11 and designated as evidence item number 88. 2 reference buccal swabs were collected from Robert Baker by LAPD detectives at the Van Nuys jail on June 14, 2017, which were booked into Property Division as item number 158 and subsequently transferred to LAPD's crime laboratory for processing. Counsel Joy?
Joey,
Receive.
Let me inquire. Esther, do you want me to book evidence envelopes separately as different numbers?
Yeah, the individual items in
Yeah.
those, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I have an evidence.
You want multiple envelopes marked individually?
The envelope and its contents.
Yeah.
Individually, yeah.
Very well. As far as the contents themselves, those are not individual. The envelope and its
The envelope.
contents.
With the envelope and its contents.
Right.
Yeah. Your Honor, I have a yellow envelope. On the exterior, it has the number 203 to 204 and 206 to 208 attached to a property report. May it and its contents be marked as People's 225.
Yes.
Thank you. Detective, showing you what's been, looks like repackaged and marked now as People's 205. Looking at the exterior,
225.
I'm sorry, 225. Looking at the property report attached to the front, do you recognize this property report?
Yes,
And how is it that you recognize it?
I completed it.
And what did you book into evidence in this, under the numbers 203 to 204 and 206 to 208?
There was an address book recovered from Robert Baker's cell, miscellaneous papers, basically,
Okay.
and a newspaper clipping.
Okay. And were these items that you recovered from his jail cell with the assistance of sheriff's personnel?
Correct.
Okay. If you could please remove the items from the envelope and describe them individually.
And 204 is basically a county-issued sort of phone book where they put important phone numbers, PIN numbers. There's a lot of PIN numbers.
What date did you recover these items from Robert Baker's jail cell?
March 18th, 2021 at 8:30 in the morning.
And which jail was that recovered from?
Los Angeles County Jail. I can't remember at this time whether he was in Twin Towers or the county jail.
All right.
The phone books.
Okay.
They have the numbers, and then some of them have other inmate PIN numbers.
Okay. And did you identify each of them as individual numbers on your property report?
Item numbers?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That match up to the numbers I gave you, 203 and 204, 206, 208?
Correct.
So if I were to show you, just for instance, what is 203, within a couple pages inside, we see numbers, it looks like phone numbers, extensions, and then perhaps inmate booking number?
Correct.
And if we move on to another page, we see a Ken Rasmussen with, again, what appears to be another booking number, or, excuse me, an inmate number.
Yes, that's a booking inmate number.
A Jose Rivera again with an inmate booking number.
Yes.
All right. And 204, the exterior. It looks like something about Bible study, correspondence, courses. If we open this up, once again, does this appear to have various names and numbers, as well as the address, 331 Salem, for Roger Brown's address in Glendale?
Yes.
Okay. What are the other items in there?
206 is miscellaneous paper. It's in this little envelope.
Oh.
It's like a little love note that says, "I love you, baby."
Okay. Looks like a small coin envelope.
Yes.
Is this what you would have used to book this item into?
Yes, I put it in
So-
that envelope.
Looks like this, with 206 on the outside, and then this is what was inside.
Yes.
Small piece of paper. It looks like it has the writing that you said, "I love you, baby," with a red heart, and maybe some type of a note, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What's the next set of items? Returning that to the coin envelope.
207 is a newspaper clipping.
Regarding what?
This is the newspaper booking photo of Monica Sementilli. Do you want the envelope?
Oh, yes. Thank you. And this, again, a small coin envelope. Is this what you used to book this newspaper clipping photo?
Correct.
Okay. 207 and the defendant's booking photo.
Yes.
Okay. What's the next item?
It's just we book these as miscellaneous papers because it's just exactly that. It's different papers with writing, some pictures, some newspaper articles.
Did some of these items appear to be mail that was sent to Robert Baker by the defendant?
Yes.
Actually, that calls for conclusion.
Sustain.
Okay. And can you tell us, what is it that we see here?
It's I don't even really want to call it a love letter. It's just a letter talking about somebody being sexy, looking sexy.
Okay. Talks about a sexy sandy ass, and that she got those creases on her bottom, correct?
Yes.
And then attached, or in addition to that, magazine, pictures, correct?
Correct.
And a photograph of a woman's buttocks that appear to have sand on them.
Yes.
And within the same envelope, on lined paper, a heart, and what does this say?
Ride or die.
And attached to that, does there appear to be an article regarding sexual positions
Yes,
based on the title?
yes,
Another photograph of a woman's buttocks, and looking at the next item, does this appear to be a happy birthday message?
yes it does.
And at the bottom, is there a signature?
No,
Forever, baby, forever with a heart?
yes, but no signature.
Okay. And if I turn it over, does the letter indicate that, as she explained in her other letter, he found his ride or die, nobody else, no matter what?
Yes,
And again, looking at the language here in the writing, I found mine and you, proven, tested, tried and true, always 100%, always resolute. Some of those phrases, always 100, always resolute, was that the same language that was utilized by the defendant and Robert Baker in communicating with one another?
Objection, speculation, no foundation.
So a rule?
yes, in overhears and stuff, I remember that exact language, resolute.
And then at the bottom, it looks like a drawing of hands with a lipstick for a mouth, and then a message. Correct?
Yes,
And what does that say? It says insert dick here,
thank you.
correct?
Yes,
Okay. And another document, a handwritten note in the same type of writing. Again, have you seen this type of language used in numerous messages or jail kites letters from the defendant to Robert Baker?
yes,
Okay. And here, again, using the phrase, calling Mr. Baker baby, as we saw in the other letter, so proud, baby, so proud and grateful for all of you. You're my
and
and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning. I think it sounds like a bad song. Can't help but cry when I hear our song. Fuck, I miss my man, my savior, my sexy beast, my husband. Correct?
yes,
And then at the bottom, again, under a similar lipstick kiss, it looks like some more writing. Is that right?
yes,
And then attached to this, within this envelope, is a drawing. Have you seen this?
I have, I recovered it.
So looking at the top, does this also appear to be the drawing consistent with other letters, jail again, letters that you've seen drafted by the defendant to Robert Baker?
Yes,
And on the female who's sitting naked at a bar drinking, there appears to be some sort of lower back tattoo.
yes,
What is that?
RLB,
What does RLB stand for?
Robert Louis Baker.
Okay? And does there also appear to be a name written on the umbrella where the female is drinking?
Yes, Maestros.
And if we look at the bottom, Does there also appear to be more
Yes.
writing?
Yes, it says, waiting at the bar for my baby, come meet me in my dreams.
Another drawing. What do we see here?
Well, it's a drawing of a woman in, looks like a two-piece bathing suit, her hands in the front of the bathing suit, some tattoos or nylon, I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Some sort of a covering of the eyes. There's a tattoo above the groin area that says master, and there's a necklace that she's wearing with an R.
For Robert,
I would assume so.
That's fine.
would that be consistent with the first letter of Robert Baker, just like we saw in the lower back tattoo?
That's an argument.
So a rule.
Yes.
And the next one, another drawing, looks like the hands are pointed to 10 o'clock.
Yes?
And above that, do you also see Robert Baker's initials?
Yes, RB.
Did you often, as we talked about the codes that the defendant and Baker would use in their jail communications, whether it be by letter or in their phone calls where they were able to talk to each other, did the time 10 p.m. or 10 o'clock come up numerous times?
Yes.
In what aspect?
It was they talked about in their jail mail and calls that they would always pause at 10 o'clock to think about each other.
And the last page says there appeared to be, again, another handwritten letter, front and back. That ends with happy holidays for the rest of this life and the next. More than love, your SMHLM.
Yes.
Any idea what any of that means?
No.
Councilman, at this time, let's take our afternoon recess for 15 minutes. The admonition does apply.